Hello, once again, video feedback, DAQ. So this one is about writing a DAQ test. So this is for anyone who wants to add new features to DAQ tests, whether that be adding a new test to an existing module, fixing the functionality of an existing module or test within a module, or just anyone who's curious on the subject of how DAQ tests are written and what to do and what to include to make DAQ run your magical new test. So there's a little kind of philosophy document, which is half opinionated and hopefully half common sense, which is in this addtest.md bit of documentation in DAQ/docs. So, as the next slide says, kind of start here. If you want to add a test, or if you want to learn how current tests work, then start here, because this kind of says in a great amount of detail, or rather just enough detail, what to do. So it kind of goes off, well, it starts off with saying the testing system DAQ uses is based on Docker containers. So this video series doesn't go over what Docker is, so I'm going to stick to this and presume that general familiarity with Docker is assumed. If you're not familiar with Docker, the long story short is that Docker allows code to run the same on my machine and on your machine and on anyone else's machine. So it containerizes both the running environment of a given bit of software and that software in one handy package. So you can do Docker run and it'll just run the same. And there's all sorts of handy little networking features that come with it as well, etc., etc., etc. But that's not the point of this, because the details of what I was saying more are out of scope. There are loads of training courses on YouTube, loads of training courses on places like Udemy to get you started with that if you're unfamiliar. And then it goes on with saying the test build configuration is controlled through host tests, defaults to miscut test, and then command build will pick those up, command run will run what you've built. It's baseline tests, test subset, subset setups. Anyway, so have a read of this if you're interested in what happens before writing a test. Command build, that's a build test kind of thing. Run some execution, that's what happens when what's going on. It talks about test configuration via the module _config.json, etc., etc., etc. Dynamic configuration can be done via the module config, but runtime configuration can be done via the dashboard as well. But yeah, so test philosophy. I like to think that DAQ follows the kind of Richard Stallman-esque kind of Unix-like philosophy, and then the philosophy of Unix itself, which is that make small little tools that can be linked together. So therefore, if we take the example of the nmap test here, so test nmap uses the nmap command. That's what it does. And the dependencies for test nmap include nmap. Nmap is a great little utility that does all sorts of stuff. You can use it for seeing if ports are open on various servers. Test Discover uses it to extract some info about BACnet. And there are loads of little things. And the idea of DAQ is that you should kind of write things that are small to do that as well. Some of the tests, some of the modules in here, like the switch tests, are larger, but in my opinion, they need to be. But generally, write a test that tests one thing well. If you want to test if your server or if you want to test that your device survives a DDoS attack, for example, which is what we'll be doing later on in this video, then just test that. Don't test that it survives a DDoS attack whilst also surviving a slow LoRS attack or something like that. I don't know. Test one thing, finish that test, test a new thing. When you're developing it, you need to include an integration test for Travis CI with some caveats. So, for example, there are no integration tests for the switch module. Mainly because the switch module tests two discrete manufacturers of switches. So for Travis to, if you wanted to create an integration test for this switch, you'd have to create a dummy Allied Telesis switch and a dummy Cisco Castos 9300 switch, which you could do, but the kind of time saving and cost benefits would be fairly mutually exclusive, if that makes sense. Basically, if you have to write a bit of code that simulated an Allied Telesis switch, that would take too long, and the test would never get released, etc., etc. So adhere to the Google Style Guide of your chosen language. This isn't strictly enforced, but it always helps. For Python, anyway, there's a PyLint configuration down here, which is adhered to. So whenever you're writing code for DAQ, in an IDE that supports PyLint, or if you're just going to run PyLint, then all these rules will be enforced. And indeed, when Travis starts to run tests, PyLint will run, and if PyLint fails, for example, then that test will fail. So code cleanliness and style is enforced in that way. The smallest amount of code possible for the greatest utility for the framework, which is kind of like Jeremy Bentham utilitarianism sort of philosophy going on there. And the code that you add to DAQ should be useful code. So don't include things like VS Code settings or IntelliJ settings which aren't recommended for development for DAQ. Don't include compiled binaries. Using Git, it's for files with line numbers and then text, not for images or whatever you want. Deployment keys, secrets. So don't put your company secrets in DAQ. Don't, for example, upload your Firebase configuration or any of your Google GCP servers accounts, and references to companies and device manufacturers. Apart from, so obviously the exception to that rule is that we support Allied Telesis switches and support Cisco switches, so those need to be in the repo. But if you're adding some to the test site and you work for Microsoft, for example, don't try and put your stamp on DAQ by putting in the name of your company. Ideally, in each of the module folders, there include a test name and a description of the test. Well, in each of the reports, include a test name and a description of the test in the report output. So that's handled via the module manifest system. So the test name is this first key, and then we've got test name dot description, and that's the description. So that anyone who is browsing the subset folder can just see what's included at a glance, rather than having to delve into the source code. And yeah, so in the summary table, what that means there, if we have a look at one of these reports for a faux device in this case, once again, if we scroll down, so there's some errors. There's a report summary, fail, overview of the test configuration expectancy, let's say. At the end of that, you've got the results table, and then there's a notes table here. So if a test passes, you can say why, but it's more useful if a test fails, just so an operator or a manufacturer or anyone who reads the report can again just see at a glance why the test failed, so they can tweak something with the configuration of their device so the test passes. Yeah, so integration tests don't need to be tedious. So DAQ sort of embodies the idea of test-driven development using integration testing and loosely regression testing. So just develop a small test and then write. So the idea of integration testing in DAQ, which I'll go over later in the next video, is that you write an expected report. So you write a test, or you write a test module, and the module produces some text which is put onto the markdown report. To write that first. So if I was writing a test, the mmap test, I would first write the result. So first password test, I would first write out that I want this test if this does this thing to produce this result here. So just put that in the report first. And that just gives you a nice baseline to target. And let Travis do the lifting after that. And then there's some other stuff in here. And then integration testing I'll go over in the next video. So yeah, keep it simple, stupid, and the old KISS thing. Use tried and tested tools. If there is a tool like Nmap that already exists to do some security stuff, if there is a tool like Ncrack that already exists, if there is a tool like a tool like Ping that exists, not the golf manufacturer, the networking utility, right there, disambiguation, then use those. Don't, or at least try, to the best of your ability, not to reinvent any of the wheels. It's a thing that's bandied about a lot in software engineering, but it's very easy to reinvent the wheel without realizing that you're doing it, as I found out a lot during my career. Yeah, and this last little point here. So if you're writing one test, if you're developing a new test, then only run the test that you're developing. So DAQ, if you include all of the tests in your configuration, so if you're building everything, so in here, local test, if you build everything and then run a test, because when software development being as it is, you write a little bit, test that works, carry on. It's an iterative process, and the development of DAQ itself is iterative as well. So the build step, if you include everything, you only want to test your new test here, a subset new test. Then don't build all these, because each test should be contained. So just remove all those, only build the test you're doing, and then the build step will the time taken for the build step will shrink. So your iteration cycle can be shorter. Okay, what else is in here? Okay, so that's about it for the philosophy. It's not really a philosophy. It's just don't make work for yourself. And here we are. So writing an absolutely needless test. So I'm going to be working for this on a fork of DAQ. It's in my GitHub account here. Sorry. And it's going to be called Test Needless, which if you glance at it, looks like test needles, which I didn't intend at the start, but there we are. So there are many ways to write a test, but one workflow could be, so I'm going to be working in the subset folder. So any new tests should be added to the subset folder and tested under the test orgs test. So I'm just going to go through my particular flow for writing a DAQ test and what needs to be, and first of all, what needs to be included. So DAQ runs your test and builds your test, is what builds, and then runs your test, and then how to put it into integration testing. So as I was saying before, or rather as the philosophy was saying before, what I want to do is try and embody the whole test-driven development thing. So looking in test orgs at the moment, and this is once again the test that is run by Travis to test any new tests that are within the subset folder. Capture test results, some stuff. So okay, let's leave it for a second and then just go through the files that you need to add. So yeah, as I've just realized, the step before doing the writing your expected report from your new module should absolutely be to add the files to make your module run first. So what I did to create this, so we're working in subset /needless, and what we need is a build.conf, we need a binary file, and we need a Docker file we need a script, need a thing to run, a Docker file, and we need a module manifest. And I'm actually just going to have this run one test. And then we need a bash script which runs your test. Yeah, okay, let's actually keep in that nothing test, because that shows that can be tampered with fairly well. So build.conf there. So build subset needless, and we're going to add needless. So what that will look for, it will look for a Docker file within this subset folder here, subset needless, that the name of the Docker file should be dockerfile.test_needless. So if I wanted to add something else here, then DAQ would, if I just copy and paste that for a second, then DAQ would look for, the DAQ would look for something with docfile dot test something else like that. That's what the build conf does. Let's just remove all that and delete you. Move to the trash. Okay, wonderful. And now we are going to see if that configuration works. We're going to add that to our local tests. And as I said before, we are only concerned with running our new fancy shiny test. So that's all we're going to include within the build conf. And that's it. So we're going to do subset needless / build conf subset needless / build conf. And then first things first, we're just going to see if the build step works. So fingers crossed. Come on, build. And I'm going to be committing to this repository here by my fork. As time goes on, so if you want to have a look at this code, then just go to here and up. Yeah. So I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, so command build, and it's picked up from our local test.conf, which once again is system.conf, and we've got our host tests configuration option, which points to local site local tests. Local tests includes the host tests. So once again, if we copy that and go to there, then we're going to include the pen test. So actually, I have messed up slightly because what I want to do is not include the pen tests because I don't need those. So actually, let's just stop this. And you see that it's included pen tests and it's included subset needless. So our build configuration has worked. Unfortunately, I don't want it. So let's just do that. So yeah, I'm going to use the remove commands here. So within our host tests, I mean, we could just edit this, but I don't want to do that. So subset pen tests. Have a look at the build conf for this guy. We've got add mmap, add brute, and add discover. And I'm just going to remove all those. Kind of feels a bit like a git rebase. There we go. And then once again, start off the build. And we can see that yep, so we're still including the local test, we're still including the host tests. Sorry, still including the pen test, still including the needless tests, but now, hopefully, we won't build any of the tests that are included within the pen test build conf. So let's just kind of wait for that to happen, and I'll just go over what this test is attempting to do. So subset, needless. Right, so once again, need a build conf. We need something that runs some code, which is this. We need a doc file, and we need a module manifest. So basically what I did is, so earlier I said that, imagine that you've got some little C program or some Python script that you've used in the past to test a building controller device or any other device. So say you've got one of those, and you want to convert that into a DAQ test and then release it to the open source community. And you can do that. So what I did, I just googled DDoS attack script and found this. So thank you to HA3 Mr. X, or Hey Mr. X, I don't know how you pronounce that. And he has a wonderful utility called DDoS attack, which prints out some stuff using Figlet, and then you put an IP target, and it just sends basically loads of packets to a target IP here. I chose this because DAQ is all about target IPs, so the device you want to test is a target IP. Each of our Flow containers has an IP address within the Docker network, or rather within the Faucet network. So we're just going to use this, and it's written in Python 2, so I kind of converted some of the print statements to Python 3 and just slowed it down a bit. So all it does, we've got a little argument for the ports and the IP address that we want to DDoS attack. Let's just put that there so it's fairly obvious. DDoS is a distributed denial of service. This isn't distributed, it's just one Python file. If I could run this on many machines if I wanted to make it distributed, but it's not. And just to test this, first of all, to see if the script runs, where am I? Don't want to be in the video files. DAQ, DAQ in there. Test needless. So yeah, so what was it before? Let's check that out. Yep. So we're pushing to Bruges. That's cool. And we go to subset needless. There we go. Then we can see we have our DDoS. So if I just run Python 3 DDoS like that, do minus help, we can see that I've got minus port and a minus address. So my website, for example, because I don't care about this, is urlwizard.com. So we get the IP address of that, which is a random server somewhere. We'll put the port as 80, and we'll put the address as this, and we'll just run this. And all it does is it just sends some random packets to all of the ports, and then presumably it just overflows, and then it stops. We'll see if that still works. Hopefully. Ooh, it's WordPress. Yeah, yes it is. Yep, still works. Sweet. Doesn't shut me down. So that's all this script does. Okay, so why did the video just fade out halfway through? Probably halfway through I was explaining something. So the truth is, I tried to do too much at once. My DDoS.py script didn't actually do what I was expecting it to do, and my module bash wrapper script here wasn't doing what I was expected to do. So if I hadn't have faded out there, what you would have had to watch was an hour of me struggling, which wouldn't be fun for anyone, least of all you. So I've now made my Python script work. So what this does now is it actually prints out the results of two separate tests. The first test being needless.nothing, and we write out the results to a file called result_lines.txt, and that is referenced in our test_needless bash script in a helpful variable that is helpfully called result lines, and that is what we are going to inject into our write out monologue function down here, and that's what's going to spit out the results from this script into a report. So the point being that if I run this script with the arguments of -p and -a, like I just did to attack my my website server, well, I say attack, I mean to send random packets over ports that are definitely already closed. Then it will print out when it finishes after a timer runs down. It's a dummy timer. It's nothing to do with actual human time or CPU time for that matter. If it passes, so passing out, and we're going to print out to our report result pass needless.script.kitty, the server is down, hooray. If it fails, which it shouldn't do unless something very weird happens with sockets somewhere, couldn't do it. Cannot DDoS because reasons. And if we run this DDoS.py script with the flag -n down here, then that -n maps to an argument called args.nothing, which is here. So if args.nothing, we're going to open up results again, and we're going to write result pass needless.nothing. Nothing happens. So that is technically the result to a different test within this module. And this isn't a hard and fast rule for all modules within DAQ, but it's kind of a good idea if you're writing a new test that your test is the name of the module, so needless dot, and then the name of the test, and then tests can have subtests. So say I had another test down here, which would be, I don't know, args, needless script dot adult, I don't know. So now this one script, which is making up our module pretty much, this now has the ability to at least print out the results of 3 different tests within this module. But let's get rid of that. So back to our test_needless. So this is what I call the module bash wrapper. So this is setting up our module, setting up where we're going to spit our results and where we're going to get our information about the test modules, the tests within the module, aka the module manifest.json. So in the module manifest, we now have needless.nothing with a description, and we have needless.script.kiddie with a description as well. And then we're going to run our test binaries, or in this case, our test scripts. And we first run the DDoS.py-p to attack the target IP. So the target IP in this case will be, because I'm running locally, will be the IP address of one of the 3 faux containers. And that's all it does. And then the second script we're running, which is the same thing, triggers this -n thing. So all it's going to print out is result pass needless.nothing. So, and then we're going to, for my own debugging purposes, into our activate.log, which is in everyone. I think so. Activate.log is the running log sort of standard out and potentially standard error, depending on how things are set up from my DDoS.py script. And also the module bash wrapper, and we're going to put that out. And then we're going to trigger this write out monologue function here. And what this does, it takes in a few arguments. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. First one is the pathway we want to write our report. So report in this context is tmp /report.txt, and that again is the /tmp. So if I just if I do this, I think I've run the script locally, definitely. So this will exist. But so I'm now on my local host, kind of. So on the laptop in which I'm recording this video, of course. And if I go into TMP, then I have the temporary files for my own operating system. So the TMP directory here is that refers to the TMP directory within the running Docker container. That is this module. So that's the report, and then we have the manifest, which is our module manifest, which we've already seen. We have the redacted log, which is I mean that's just a running log of this particular module. Then we have the result lines, which will include things like this, well, exactly this, result pass needless, and this result info needless, blah 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 blah, etc. etc. And yeah, so the write out monologue. What this does, taking in the manifest, it doesn't matter too much, but it loops through each of the tests that are found within the module manifest, looks for results in those, and then uses this function up here, write out result, to write out the results of all of the tests that are found within the module manifest. So, without further ado, just another side of why we're wrong. So, to copy over this build conf and to get the right structure for this test module, this needless module right here, I kind of just copied over everything that was in the switches directory. It would be good if there was a kind of a template directory for a new module, and I might add that, but there isn't at the moment. So be careful of copying and pasting things, because it might need a little bit of tweaking, and that's where my failed hour, which is why this new version of the video exists, that's where that came from. So as ever, be careful copying and pasting stuff. So if we run DAQ again, so before I enter my password, so I have set up in my local folder here. So if you look in site, local tests, I'm removed a load of stuff, building Docker, and I'm only building the module that I'm currently developing. That's what that is right there. So we're only building things that are in subset needless build.conf, and that's what's in here. So build, so that's what that is. And then on module config, the only thing that we have enabled, so the only test that should run, aside from the host test that I haven't disabled, should be the needless module. So if I put false there, then nothing would happen. Where would you want it to do? We've still got our approver of Michael Gambon and an operator of Dame Judi Dench. Well, that's as arbitrary as it can be. So let's just run things. And well, I've got to do a build, because what have I changed? Let's have a look. Yeah, I'll just revert those because those aren't that important. So let's do that, and then let's run once again. So things, the two lines that I just deleted from test needless are ones that I added just a while ago. So DAQ is not smart in the way that it checks difference in files. It doesn't check anything to do with. It doesn't discount comments, for example, which is kind of what those are. It doesn't discount variables that you don't use in your module bash wrapping script. It's just any change, much like it itself. Okay, so what should we have to now? So we got teleport 2. Yeah, okay. So we are running. We're all good. Beautiful. The thing I mentioned earlier was about the sort of pseudo test-driven development aspects behind DAQ. But I will definitely go over that in the next video. Because once again, I tried to do the integration testing and making the script work at the same time, and I gave myself too many channels for failure. Okay, so we got Santi up. That's going well. DHCP's up. Still waiting. There we go. So, port 1. Yeah. It's pulling ahead. Slowly but surely. We monitor for 8 seconds, I believe. Looking for that to go to 8, and there we are. How many times can you say, and there we are, in one video? So Needless has probably finished by now. Just a quick refresh of the dashboard. Yes, okay. So if we have a look in our Markdown report on the Firebase dashboard, we can see now that I haven't defined a device info, so that's where that error is coming from. These errors at the top aren't kind of runtime showstopper errors. They're just to tell you that some parts of the report that you might have expected to appear haven't appeared because you haven't included them within the necessary module config. And okay, so we can see we have a lot of logs, and we have some test reports, and we have some test results down below. But let's just have a look at the PDF report because it's slightly nicer to look at. For port 1, not that one. So here are the results of our absolutely categorically needless test. We can see that both of them are passed. Hooray. And I defined in my module config here, I wanted the needless script kiddie tests with this category of silly Python scripts with a Z, because hackers. And I wanted that to be a required pass. So if it's a required pass, as we see here, there's one of them that's required pass, and that is why this report is saying I have an overall device result pass. This can change us to required fail just for the next run, just to show you that. We have a result for needless nothing happened, that's passed, and we have a result for needless.script.kiddie, and that is a required pass, and it passed. Hooray! Didn't do anything really. This is a useless test. It doesn't do anything useful at all. It just fires some packets at some ports, going down. And there we are. So even though, so just to fully explain why the ordering of that is weird. So I ran this test first. I ran Python 3 DWPY first, and I ran the nothing test second. But in the report, they are the other way around. So we have this monologue out here, which monologue so-called because it has a log of every running test within the module. So we've got the huge, silly printing out log of the script kiddie test, which run first, of course, and then we have the result of needless.nothing before the result of script kiddie. And the reason that is simply because in our module manifest here, needless.nothing comes first, and that's the only reason. If I were to switch these around, don't do that. If I was to switch these around, like so, put a comma there, put a comma there, so there's no errors, then needless.script.kd would appear first, and that's a side effect of using the write out monologue function. That's all that is. Okay, so that is our test done. That's it. It's up and running. The thing to do next, so let's say that you're writing a test and you would like to get it released. If you want to put in a pull request to into faucet.dac, and you would like the developers of this repository to review your code at any point, then what you need to do is make Travis pass with your additions. So we've got a working test which does something or other, and in the next one we'll go through how to add an integration test, or rather extend the current integration test. So hopefully your code will be approved, given all sorts of other external factors.